And welcome to another episode of Expert Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Erin Mann. Erin, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you are welcome. If you're listening to this, you need to just strap on your seatbelts because this is going to be a fun, crazy conversation. Erin um, well, I call her the FBI elderberry lady, and she's got a whole story you're going to love of how she was at one place and now she's doing running three companies, and we're going to talk about how can you start companies regardless of the industry, some of the struggles, but how can you actually get it to that next level. Because she's done that and she is here to help to mentor to grow. So I think Erin, I'm going to be done. I'm going to ask you, all right, you've got this vast background with FBI stuff, with having kids, with starting businesses. How in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
The Cliff Notes version is I was always the kid that was going to be in the FBI. I come from a background. My mom and dad were both in the bureau. I was never the kid that wanted to be a doctor or a vet or anything like that. I was going to chase bad guys, like from the time I was 7 years old. And that's exactly what I went off to do. So I went to college. I got my undergrad in criminal justice, got a criminology master's, and went into the bureau when I was 21. It was post 9/11. So I worked all counterintelligence and counterterrorism cases, traveling the world. Everything I did was undercover, and I couldn't believe I got paid to do the job I was doing. I finally had my career, and I loved the work that I was doing. And thought I was going to, as they say, live and die by the FBI. Like I was going to be director by the time I was 35.
Yeah.
That was going to be what I did. And I got transferred up here, well, I say up here, to headquarters at Quantico and met my husband, or my now husband. And we ended up having a son after some very unlucky attempts at having a child. We had our Lucas. And as soon as I had him, I said, I think I want to stay home and protect my family. Like instead of kind of traveling the
Mm,
world, like working to protect, American families, I think I want to just focus on my family. And like I said, I never thought I would leave, but I did. I retired early after 15 years in the bureau. And a year into Lucas's life, he became very sick. They
mm.
told us the eve of his, excuse me, first birthday that there was a 99% chance he had leukemia. And for, any parent, that's just
Yeah.
heartbreaking. We were actually in Florida for his 1 year birthday. We had taken him to see family. And that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing on a birthday, right? It's like celebrating. And instead,
Right.
we were on the cancer floor, the oncology floor of a children's hospital the night before his 1 year birthday. And he had to go, undergo the bone marrow tests and stuff like that.
Mm,
And they basically told us, we have to make a decision on when we are able to determine if he has leukemia or not, because if it's before the child turns 365 days old, it's a totally different treatment plan than if they're 365 days old. And we want the one for the one who's under 365. So we literally were like signing all of this paperwork. We really didn't even know what we were doing at that point. We were like, just check our, test our child and take
yeah.
care of him. Um, it turned out he did not. He was
Okay.
that 1%. He had a virus that mimicked leukemia in the blood. So it was actually really good that we were at the hospital. That potentially saved his life because he was so ill.
Okay.
But once we left the hospital, the kiddo just stayed sick. He could not stay well for anything. He would catch cold after cold. He could never really go to preschool for more than 2 days because he would just come home sick because his little immune system just stayed wrecked.
Okay.
And we were seeing three different doctors, specialists, like one for his lungs, and other things. And he was on a few different medications a day. They were all supposed to be for children 6 and over. And my 1 year old was being prescribed
Wow.
them. And it just one day we went to his lung specialist, and I looked at him and I said, I'm a smart woman. I have a PhD, a master's. Like I can do research. I can like this child is my job, right? Like I need to take care of like what can I do? I will do it. And he just looked at me and he said, there's nothing we can do. We just kind of got to wait and see like what happens as he grows up. And something at that point, even though we had been seeing these specialists for like so long, something at that point just was like, no, like I do not accept this anymore. And I went home, put him to his nap, and started going to the end of Google, as I call it, because I'm really good at weeding through what's correct
Yeah.
information, not so correct information, where to find good information. And I just started like, looking at keywords because Chat GTP wasn't a thing back then.
Right.
No, and stuff. It wasn't like so as easy as it is now, but I was just like Googling keywords like immune, lung health, 1 year old, like kind of all of these things I knew was going on. And I started finding these research studies done on elderberries and elderberry syrup and the consumption of it and how it helped naturally build an immune system, how it helped um, treat colds and flus at the onset of these illnesses. And I thought, you know what? Why not? Let's go like grab some of this stuff. Like, let's see if it helps with my child. Like,
Yeah.
it couldn't hurt. So I go to, a leading national retailer. I grab a leading national brand and I look at it and I'm like, no. I've already been giving my child God only knows what type of ingredients and all of this medicine. I'm not now going to go to this artificial that, artificial whatever. Let's make it ourselves. So then I went back home and like completely just researched what ingredients should actually go in it to benefit one's health for different reasons and and how to properly do it because it was for a 1 year old, right? I didn't want to put him at any
Right.
risk. Along, the short version of that is 6 months later we were released from all of his specialists. He has not been back to a he's now 9, hasn't been back to a specialist, and it really made an entire change in our family's lifestyle, health, and just overall happiness. So I started blogging about our experience and my experience as a mom, about taking control and having that, gumption to do it for yourself and your family, that like you are a smart woman, you can do it. Like, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And that's how Aaron's Elderberries was born. I started giving it away to people to where like they could try it, and my friends would then give it to other friends who would then call me and be like, "Oh my gosh, can you make some of that for me? Like my kid loves it because he hates the stuff I bought at, this place." And because it's supposed to be kid friendly, I wanted my child to love
Right.
it. So I made it child friendly while still being very healthy. And my husband was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa."
Yeah.
People are consuming this, like maybe you should become a business. Like I think we need insurance. Meanwhile, I'm just like, "Oh, here you go, here we go."
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I really didn't have that business mindset, at that point. And but soon I did. And Aaron's Elderberries was formed solely so I could share it with everyone in a legal sense while also protecting my family.
Right.
And I started selling at a farmer's market twice a month. And before I knew it, 2 months later, I was full time at 4 different farmers markets, hired a couple of my stay-at-home mom friends who wanted to earn some extra money for their family. And they really helped me spread the word about Aaron's Elderberries. And a couple of years after that, I opened my first retail store in 2021 to 2022, just hit our 3-year anniversary.
Great.
But since then, I've been wholesaling to retailers. I've been doing, e-commerce. We still do local events. We still have the shop here. Being in a food business, I had to learn all of the food laws, right? I have a criminology PhD. I know nothing about making and selling and manufacturing food. All I
Yeah.
know is I want to follow the law and not get in trouble. So I really did a deep dive into all of that and learned probably even more than I needed to at the time, but it made me very well versed in food law, both in the state, and national regulations. And what I found going to all these other farmers markets and events where we had so many small food businesses that didn't have a place they could go and afford to have a rented or a commissary kitchen, like an inspected kitchen they could work out of.
Oh, got it.
Because not
Yeah.
all states allow you to work out of your home. They have different regulations. And there was just nothing affordable in our area that wasn't like a restaurant that was going to, rent it to you at 2 a.m. after they close and all
Right.
that. So I decided to take the funds from Aaron's Elderberries and reinvest it into what I named the kitchen at Vent Hill. Vent Hill is the area we live in. And I built a commissary kitchen for our small food businesses in our community. So it's kind of a 360 look at almost like farm to table, where if someone goes to the farmer's market, they don't even have to be a business. They can go to the farmer's market, buy like 5 bushels of tomatoes, come to our kitchen because they bought all these tomatoes from their favorite farmer in our area and make all the pasta sauce they're going to give away as Christmas presents, right? Or we have our small food businesses who go to those farmers markets, or the food trucks that go to these events and sell. They need a commissary kitchen to prep out of or to hot hold or to reheat and things. They can do that here. I do classes and kind of mentoring on, you want to start a small food business or you want to take, you do cookies right now. Everyone says they're great and you should sell them. I will mentor you in that facet of this is how you do it correctly, legally, to where you can have a bustling, business and start working towards wholesaling or landing a major retailer if that's your goal. So
Right.
that was the second company that I created really inadvertently. And the third company is kind of worked in with Erin's Elderberries, but it's here at our retail shop and it's called Coffee at Erin's just because people needed a local place for moms and kids to just hang out, feel like they can be themselves, not be judged. We sit on a county park, so they get hula hoops and balls and stuff like
Mm.
that to play with. But if you ever told me that I would know everything there is to know about espresso, because I was not a coffee drinker until I opened a coffee shop. Also I never thought I would know anything about food laws, 10,
Right.
15 years ago in my life. But that's how, yeah, I went from being in the bureau to, doing what I do now and just being so involved in, local growth or, even national growth of some of our small food businesses is because I had a kiddo who just needed me. And then I wanted to be able to help others with that information that I found. Yeah.
Wow, what a story. That is incredible. Um, yeah, I'm sitting here with I've got ideas just running through and questions just going everywhere. So here's the cool one of the many cool things is you were down a pathway that you thought was your career from childhood.
Yeah.
Something happened, you pivoted, thought you had a new career path. It pivoted because you had a child who got sick. Now you've got a new career path, which is researching all this stuff to get your child healthy, which created a new career path. And you just find these little opportunities and you're like, oh, well, I should do that. And then you find something and oh, I should do that. And so as an entrepreneur, your brain is just always working in whether you're actively looking for these things or not, when they pop up, you see them and then you seize them when it makes sense. And I think that is a skill set, Erin, that not everybody an entrepreneur has. Hence why it's so important to work with you on the mentoring aspect, because you can help them kind of lay out a pathway and keep them encouraged when they get the visit from the FDA, let's say, to go, it's okay, we got this. Here's how you need to do it. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because if you would have told me what you just told me 6 years ago when I was kind of a year into this business, I'd be like, no, I just like to do things and help people. I did not really understand what I was doing in a natural way, if that makes sense. Like I don't have business classes, so I don't know how to say like, oh, it's called what you're doing is actually called this. There's a methodology and a theory, behind it. I was kind of just doing it and understanding it naturally, which I very much understand that it doesn't come naturally to all people.
Right.
But because it does apparently to me, because that's what people say, I do love to help people on that route, and I will help them kind of lay it out or see something from a different viewpoint. Just like when you're saying, oh, they're going to get a visit when they get a visit from the FDA. I actually, with my mentees, I work with them to actually love their inspectors because what I tell them, it's not like you see on TV. They actually really want you to succeed because
Mhm.
the less amount of problem children they have, the
Yeah.
happier they are, which also means they know that consumers nationwide are at a lower risk level when they're
Right.
consuming food, right? So they actually want to, help you and encourage you and see you be successful because then they know their consumers are safe.
Yeah. That's a good perspective. It's yeah. Okay, so wow, where do we even go from here, Aaron? Let's talk about um, the some of the challenges, I guess, and maybe they're not the physical challenge, they're more of the mental challenges of somebody, whether they're at the farmer's market, whether they're in a food truck, or whether they've started another kind of company. Those challenges tend to be similar as you look across. What
Yeah.
are some of those mental challenges that you've helped some people kind of crest and go, okay, it's not as big as you think it is. It's more of an anthill, but in our mind, it's Mount Everest.
Yeah, the first thing that is always is just if we're talking food specific business is the regulations or really any business, right? Is those actual legal regulations that are imperative or rule over your niche of whatever you're doing. So
Yep.
in food business, and I tell people when they're like, why are you doing this? I say, I do it because I try to be the person I needed when I started this 7 years ago because I didn't understand food law. I
Right.
would have a question about XYZ, think that I'd found the answer, which led to another question, right? And then in my research of that, I read something else that totally negated what XYZ was. And I was
Yeah.
just doing this. And I tell people if I had had someone like me who knew this and felt like they could actively explain it in, I don't want to say in dumbed down words, but like in a way in which someone who doesn't know what they're doing, like in that type of jargon, I would have been in business 6 months before I was actually in business because I just had to work and scrape to like figure out what this meant to do these regulations correctly, like for my applications and stuff. So I think that is the biggest hurdle mentally for a lot of food business starting up. They think that they know what they want to do,
Right.
and you may not necessarily be able to do it or be allowed to do it the way in which you want to. And they're like, oh, if I can't do it that way, I'm not going to do it anyways. Well, okay, it just means you can't take the easy way out, right? But there is
Right.
a way to do it. Now let's talk about how we get you there.
That's
Like,
right.
do you have to rent a kitchen? Can you afford it? Or could we make your home inspectable just by replacing a sink? That
Right.
doesn't cost a lot of money. So it's more of, yeah, getting kind of over those like mental hurdles of understanding what the regulations are and what they mean for you. And then
Yeah.
how do we work within that to where it doesn't just stopgap you of, okay, well, I give up. I
Seriously.
do it.
Yeah, because here's one thing I've learned in life and in businesses. There is always a solution. Now,
Mhm.
I may need to do some thinking or find some people, but there is always a solution. And that's what it sounds like you provide to people, but it comes out of how you've lived the last decade of your life is saying, okay, that's not an acceptable answer. I'm going to go find something else, right?
Yeah,
And but
absolutely.
that isn't that how entrepreneurship happens?
Yes, but I think like I mean, like me, when I was starting out, like I said, I quit like 3 times. I'm like, fine, I can't figure this out. I quit. And then the next morning I'd be like, okay, we can do this. Let's try it again. You kind of have to have like your pity party and like fall apart and then like put yourself back together. And I would do that within like a 24 hour, period.
Yeah,
Some people do it for like 3 months. But I think you have to like help give people the motivation of don't do that. Like, yes, it can be done. Just do it. Work, and that's why mentorship is so important.
yeah,
Everyone loves to mentor, especially if they're successful. Like I always tell people, no one more successful than you will ever say no to mentorship. Now,
right,
they may say, I need to wait a minute because I've got like this and that going on. But people who are successful do like to share what they do or how they do it or what may impact you, in a good way because they don't want to see other businesses have to go through what they did. And like I said, that's why I think mentorship is just so important to, find because it keeps you going. It gives you a
yeah.
little bit of that, hey, someone's rooting for me, but also not that you owe it to them, but like I want to make them proud, like you're also kind of, you got a stakeholder in it, so to speak.
Yeah, and I love the idea of mentoring, especially when I think of those farmers market type people or those people. I got a friend of mine. He's in business now, does a lot of things, but he's partnering a company that does like little beef sticks, right? And they started really small and things, and now they're in WalMarts and everywhere. And it's like, how'd you do that, right? But that's possible for a lot of people to show up in a Trader Joe's or a wherever. There's a pathway, and if somebody is in New Mexico and they're like, I don't even know who would help me, they can reach out to you
Yep.
and have those conversations. Because at the end of the day, I assume the pathway is pretty similar everywhere you go on
Yeah,
stuff like that,
absolutely.
right?
So, yeah, I mean, federal regulations are just that, right? They apply like
Federal.
everywhere. State regulations are different state to state.
Yeah.
And I really started mentoring, honestly, during COVID because we saw so many people losing their jobs and they actually turned to food making to provide food or
Yeah.
to provide money for their families because everybody wanted that comfort food, right? So, like cookies,
Right.
cupcakes, whatever, bread, like people liked buying that kind of thing. So, someone was like, hey, I'm great at making cupcakes. I just lost my job. I can do this from home under, cottage law or exemption law. Like, this is what I'm going to do. So that's actually when I started mentoring, because people were finding me and reaching out saying, could you help me with this? Like, I need to do this to make money for my family, but I want to make sure I'm doing it right and I'm not going to get in trouble. And so what I do if someone reaches out for me from another state, because, there are similarities, there are
Yeah.
differences, but I know what to look for. So I'll actually research that state. And even if they tell me the county or jurisdiction or township that they live in, I will see if there's anything else that covers them. But I learn it before I talk to you,
Okay.
where I
Just
can
stop,
help.
just stop right there. Wait a minute. Did y'all hear that? She does the research. I'm sitting here going, you're going to tell me to go back and research all the codes, and I'm like, ah.
Well,
Wait, you re I just had to stop that and go, wait a minute, you're researching. Well, I forget. You love research. You're really good
I
at it.
do.
What
Yes.
a great value proposition right there. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I just
No,
had
I was gonna say I do the research, but there is a but. I do the research, but those that I mentor, I do not quote do it for them. I will
Mhm.
say, all right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go on this website. I'm going to show you where you're finding it on your screen. You're going to bookmark this page,
Good.
because before I talk to you the next time, you're going to read all of it, like
Excellent.
all of it. I'm going to tell you what you need to know right now, but then I want you to go to and read and understand the why.
Yeah.
And that is really important to me in my mentorship. I don't want to tell you, do this, do that, do this, do that. I want you to understand it, because then when you need to do it again,
Yeah.
you know what you're doing. But
Yeah.
then also, guess what? That trickle effect happens. And when a small business sees you, you are going to have that potential opportunity to mentor another small business. And it's just going to, all of that knowledge from, wherever is just going to start dissipating between, who knows and who knows where. And that's, like I said, at the end of the day, my goal is to always help people. And, hopefully this information is out there helping people that I will never know, meet, or won't even know me from Adam's house cat. So, there's so much more behind just okay, here's what you do and why you do it. Really understand it, really get a knowledge base on it to where you can expand your business, but then also you have the potential in the future to help others.
That's amazing. Who's an ideal client for you? Who's out there thinking, "Oh, yeah, I'm too small potatoes for her," or "I'm too big," or I mean, what would be like a sweet spot, somebody who's running a business or thinking to reach out to you?
So it's like starting their food business, or that is in the food like realm
Yes,
that wants
yes.
mentorship. Yeah, so honestly, like anyone,
Okay,
I'll be frank, because I have some companies that reach out to me and say, "Hey, I can't ship this product to California without it landing in 7,000 pieces. Can you help me with my packaging and my
okay.
shipping?" I will help with that, but kind of what I am really, really good at is make XYZ. I really want to start selling it. I don't know where, I don't know what to do, licensing, insurance, stuff
Got
like that
it.
wise. Like, how do I get going? And then I will have a lot of clients who are like, okay, I've started it. And now what do I do? Okay, well, now we tell your story. Like, let's work on who are you telling your story to? Where are you getting this
Yeah.
information? Like, what social media outlets are you using? Like, who's going to your farmer's market, or who's going to an event to put you face to face with your community to where, they have that brand recognition and that brand loyalty to you once they've tried your product. So really, I fall literally anywhere in the giant. I mean, if someone's like, oh, I want to build like a 4-story restaurant,